County Board of Commissioners Work Session, January 13th, 2021, 9 a.m. via Zoom. Number one, Northern Michigan Community Action Agency, Mark Melbourne. What do you got on Action Agency, Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. December 10th, there was an article about early Head Start enrollment open program. My intention is when we are no longer secluded to not having meetings, my goal is to ask Carrie Bachman and her staff to possibly meet us. It was a beautiful article. I'll show it to you right. I think it'd be an opportunity for us to see their Head Start Early program, which is down there by Powell's Restaurant. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions in regards to Mr. Milburn on the Northern Michigan Community Action Agency? Okay, hearing none. Item 2, Animal Control Ordinance, Jody Valentino and Dee Dee Mendick.
So obviously Dee Dee and Tim have both come to you several meetings, have touched on the fact that we frequently annually rely on these low-cost shot clinics that the Animal Control Center hosts in order to allow our residents of Roscommon County to receive those rabies vaccines, which then allows them to purchase the needed licenses so they don't get fines and fees. Dee Dee has always timed these so that they coincide with the ability to get the license at a reduced fee. So is it $5 and $10, Dee Dee?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Versus $40, which is a huge savings, obviously. And obviously, the less costly it is to a resident in order to get that canine license, the more licenses we have, the better animal control can do their jobs and the less they are chasing unlicensed animals during census time as well. This year, Dee Dee has been prohibited from holding those clinics when she likes to due to all of our COVID activities and the restrictions that we've had. So what the Board of Commissioners is being asked to do is adopt a resolution that will waive those specific provisions under ordinance number 6, which is the Animal Control Ordinance amended. And essentially you would be waiving those for a set period of time. That would allow Dee Dee more time to schedule clinics and then our residents to still receive those licenses at a discounted rate as well. Dee Dee, you talked to the townships, correct?
I did. And all of them were on board for selling licenses for an extra month if we were able to extend.
Okay. Now, that's being presented to you and I've sent out the resolution to all of you yesterday and have had Michelle proof that for me as well. That would allow you essentially to legally waive that portions of the ordinance for a set amount of time. So I guess I needed to know questions, comments, concerns.
Okay, any commissioner have any questions in regards to the Animal Control Ordinance on?
Just a quick one, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
How far did we go, Dee Dee?
We have one clinic scheduled for February 27th, the last Saturday in February. And I'm waiting for confirmation from a couple other vets on at least one more in March, possibly 2 clinics.
Would you consider even pushing out a little farther to give you a little more leeway?
The vet that offered to do the clinic the last Saturday in February, that's the only time she could do it. She works mainly with large animals, and with spring coming, she said she would be too busy to do one in March. So that's why we opted for that last weekend in February to at least get one scheduled, so.
Okay, yeah, I think whatever's best for you and obviously the folks that are doing it and also the public. Thanks a lot, Dee Dee. Appreciate you and your staff.
Thanks.
Hey, Dee Dee, this is Tim.
Yes,
Is April 1st going to be far enough out, or do you want to try and push it to the end of April as far as licensing and stuff like that?
I think that April 1st should be fine. If we have a clinic, say the 13th of March and the 27th, or the 13th and then the last weekend in March, that should give them plenty of time to still be able to get licenses at a discount, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of the route I was going with, Mr. Chair, and also Chairman Tim Muckenthaler as our board. I would, if you feel that you need to push it out again a little later, feel free to come back, and obviously I believe the board would be very amenable to push it back even a little farther, whatever is best for you and the public.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mark.
Okay, any other commissioner have any comment in regards to the ordinance 6 of the animal control ordinance? So with that, we will put that on for a motion on the meeting of the 27th. Is that all right with everybody?
Sounds good, Bob.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, MERS defined benefit and hybrid plan addendums. Jody Valentino.
So this one is actually really easy. MERS reached out to Noel and I, and basically they told us that we have had to make distinguishing, and this is everybody, it's not just us, it's any MERS defined benefit or hybrid plan. We have never had to define what leaves of absences would still qualify for service credit or service exclusion before. But they are saying now that under new guidelines that is something that we had to do for the defined benefit and the hybrid plan. So in keeping with all of our past practices, our union contracts and our personnel policy, we have the adoption agreement addendum in which all service credit is granted for leaves except extended personal leaves of absence, which are essentially personal leaves of absence that extend over 30 days. So that is what I will have to have you adopt at the next January meeting, unless you have questions or concerns I can answer.
Okay, so in other words, we've got another thing for our motion for the 27th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Jody in regards to the MERS defined benefit and hybrid plan? Okay, item number 4, recycling committee reappointments, Jody Valentino and Tim Muckenthaler.
Well, really, it's Tim. So go ahead, Tim.
All right,
yeah, gee, thanks. What we need to do is reappoint Bill Tudor and Jack McCauley. We're waiting to get Jack McCauley's paperwork back or whatever, or something like that. And also myself, but as a commissioner, I guess I'm already extended for another 2 years, I believe. But we need to reappoint the other 2 gentlemen.
okay. You've reached out to those 2 gentlemen, Tim?
I have not, but I think Ruth Stauffer has.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bill Tudor turned his slip in. We just need to get one from Jack McCauley and we'll be good to go.
Yes.
Okay, and if we get that, we'll look at for a motion to reappoint both those gentlemen at the next meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, item number 5, wage and salary committee, final discussion of the whole. Basically just put that on, gentlemen. I know we've been talking about that with other reappointments, and that one was kind of hanging out there. We were looking to get some new people to be on that board. So we reached out to everybody, and lo and behold, we didn't get any takers. Surprise, surprise. So if you look at your motions, you will see that we've got 9 people that in most cases, I think will be reappointed to that committee, with the exception of Vance Stringham will be added. So that is on for motion, and I put it on for motion, but I did want to talk about it one final time. We have discussed this 2 or 3 times, so I felt it was prudent to get it done with some of the other things that we've got to do for 2021. Anybody else have any input on the wage and salary committee? Okay. Item 6, review and future plans of EDC and Planning Commission committees, discussion of the whole. In regards to that, I'll start with EDC. Commissioner Milburn and myself sit on that board, and it's a board that's been struggling a little bit because there's some old time members on there and there's some new members on there. And we got some openings on that board. In the past, there seems to always have been some openings on that board, but there's always been a question whether they are a corporation or if they are a committee. And at this time, I believe that Mr. Milburn's in agreement with me of this, but at this time, we feel it's functioning as a committee. If it's to be a corporation, it has to have its own separate bylaws and its own insurance, and they don't have their own insurance. So, and there are some people that are a little bit nervous about that. So it's Mr. Milburn and my opinion that they should stay as a committee, and they are under the county. So with that, that's what we've been trying to do that, but it seems to keep coming up whether they're a corporation. They advertise themselves as a corporation. The papers for incorporation are in fact still at the state of Michigan, but they were filed with them back in the 90s. So to be a corporation, there would have to be a number of updates done to that. So at this point, it's my recommendation that they stay a committee. So, Mr. Milburn,
Agreed.
okay. Anybody else have any opinions on that?
You know, I agree 100% as far as it should stay as a committee versus a
Okay.
corporation.
Okay. And then one other thing I wanted to share with the board, and it's something that's happened in the last month, but I've got a company that is in Grand Rapids that I found out does economic development work for counties. And 3 of the counties that they do is Ionia County, Montcalm County, and Newaygo County. And I'm going to start doing some research on that. And what they do is they contract with that company, because it is a desire of the people on that, most of the people on that EDC board right now, that we need a full-time economic development director, which I agree with, but there's an expense there. So I'm going to reach out to this company. I've got a contact that I can make a good contact with and get some input on it. And I'm going to try to do a little bit more research on that and see if we can't get a little more information. And if we can contract with that company for a decent amount of money and see that we can do it, we may want to do that, which will give us a full-time economic development director. Maybe at that time, we may need to explore being a corporation. So anybody else have any input on, Jody's got her finger up, I think.
I wanted to clarify one thing, Chairman, so that the Board of Commissioners understands. A past group of Board of Commissioners did create a economic development corporation. So this current economic development committee does not need your approval to go back to a corporation standard.
Okay.
It exists. So unless you undo what was done before, they have that ability to move forward. So just remember that if they voted in a 5-4, they could move forward as a corporation if they so choose to take that risk on without any other input from the Board of Commissioners, because a past board 20 years ago went through the processes to make that happen.
Okay. You know what? I don't have a preference one way or the other. Whichever way that this county decides to go, whether that group decides to go corporation or if they decide to stay a committee, I want the best one for the county is what I'm looking for. And I think that's what Mr. Milburn and our goal both are, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I couldn't agree with you more. We obviously want what's best for the county. We want what's best for the business. We want what's best for the people. We're always aggressively moving forward with every suggestion that we possibly can receive. I think the Board of Commissioners and the Economic Development Committee / board has always been amenable to listen to good quality suggestions. And obviously, we want to continue that, that discussion. Anytime we can improve our county, it benefits everyone.
Okay. Yes, Ken, go ahead.
How does this affect our contract with Michigan Works and Brenda Batchelor?
Well, if this committee would decide that that was the direction that they would go, that would probably mean that we wouldn't need Michigan Works anymore. So, because it's gonna come down to financially, which way is the best way to go for the county. I have discussed this with Brenda, so there's nothing out there that, you know, we're not behind the scenes doing anything. She's all in favor of doing something. Matter of fact, she's a little frustrated because of the fact that, you know, she's trying to fill these board positions. But then if you look at the bylaws, the board, I believe the bylaw says it's either supposed to be 7 to 15 members, so it doesn't require 15. It's just basically telling you have to have a minimum of 7. So, but we've been having a hard time getting business people on this committee. So everything's on the up and up with Michigan Works, and no one, myself included, I can't speak for Mr. Milburn, but we are not upset at all with Michigan Works. We're just trying to do what's best for the county here and get as much bang for a buck as we can. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to get this county moving again. So, you know, and I know it's tough right now with COVID out there and so forth, and we're probably going to struggle with it for the near future yet. But I think now is the time to kind of get our ducks in a row. So does that answer your question, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. Tim, anything from you on this?
No, not right now. Like I said, we got to try and get something going to stimulate business or whatever we got to do. But
Right,
whichever route we got to take, we got to take.
correct. Okay. David Russo?
Nope, I'm all set with it the way it was presented, you know, in the future even. Only thing I have a question for Jody is if they were to move, they would have to provide insurance and everything. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yep, they would be their own tax ID, which, like I said, they already have all of those, but yes, they would have to get their own liability insurance that covers their actions and their boards. The flip side of that is they do have access to more grant funding. And this board could so choose to provide an annual dollar amount to the Roscommon County Economic Development Corporation. But that would be something that board needs to make that decision on their own.
Perfect. Thank you, Jody.
Correct. So, you know, one of my goals is number one is I think I want to get, like I say, I want to get the county moving again, and I want to get the Economic Development Committee moving again. So anybody else with any comments, please, in regards to economic development? Okay, Planning Commission. It's been brought to my attention, and I didn't know whether this is the case or not, but it's been brought to my attention that that the county does not have to have a planning commission. Is that correct?
Yes. It is
So
correct. Yeah.
So each individual township would be in charge of their own planning?
Which they are right now, David, would you agree?
Yes, they are. We're another set of eyes for each township. We just had a meeting the other night, like Denton Township. We're meeting 4 times a year. And basically the townships, they come to us with any changes. There's a lot of times where we look it over, and we have a really good board now, a young, fresh board. And we'll catch stuff and we report back to the township, and we're another set of eyes. And I would not like to see this go through. I think we really need to be there. It's just something that's really good. You know, we're another set of eyes for the township, and that's my biggest thing. And
in those duties, just in the research and the reading of the Planning and Enabling Act from 2008, Just to give you some ideas, that's really the only function that would still need to be done. And traditionally what would happen then is those, what do you get, like 1 or 2 of those a year, as far as like, it's the big ones. So when they redo a planning or zoning. they're
Right.
actual-
Well, now if they're just changing something, they're sending it to us. We'll probably get like a half a dozen. You know, we have a special one coming up with Denton Township. And I just personally think it's really good. And not only that, you know, I could inform, you know, as going down the line, any changes, you know, and for the other townships too.
I think the big thing is making sure you guys stick to 4 meetings and scheduling it around that, David. That would
We-
be the big thing for me.
Yeah.
The other portion of that is in doing some of the research on this. Do we know, and Michelle, this might be something that you could find for me. When we created it's been a long time ago, so I don't know if any of you were here, but when we created the planning commission, was that done through an ordinance? How was that done? Does anybody know? Because there were certain steps that should have been taken, and I'm not 100% sure they were. So that's something we might want to correct. And I'm informing you because I found that out yesterday when I was researching. So,
Well, the planning commission, I know they've been around for years years. So I'm sure them steps were taken back then, unless this is something new.
well, this was from the 2008 Planning and Enabling Act. So
Okay.
I'm wondering if it did get overlooked back then, because probably there was a planning commission prior to. So Michelle, on your long list of things in the next month or so. Thank you.
I believe back then I was even on the planning commission for the county, and I don't believe we upgraded, as you want to say, to any changes like that.
Here's another thought for you too. Most planning commissions drive economic development in the county. That is for those counties that have planning commissions that are active, and really the county plan should outline those economic areas. I think you guys, I mean, you've been reading through it recently, right, David? Like
Yes, we're actually, when we meet in person again, we're going to go over the master plan.
Right, and that master plan should really be brought to economic development as well. If you guys are going to move forward, those 2 things should go together. So that's
Good to know.
yeah, just a thought.
Well, that's good to know, especially what we're talking about doing with economic development and doing some research and trying to develop that. Back to economic development, I forgot to bring this up, but you know, if my personal wish is if we could get to a person that was one person that was in charge of economic development, we've got that office down there that could be used for an economic development person. That's where the sawmill was. Am I correct, Jody? And then we could actively bring it in within the county. And I think we get a little bit more bang for our buck if we did that. So that's back to that. As far as planning commission, David, so it's your recommendation as a chairman to keep that on for 4 meetings a year as an oversight committee, basically.
Correct. And actually that should be posted on the website already. Lori was going to take care of that with the dates.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Muckenthaler, any thoughts on that? Planning commission?
I know when I worked back in the township, we would have to send stuff up to the planning commission. And basically it was to get their blessing, so to speak. Because we had different projects down there, and we sent it to the planning commission, and after it went to the county planning commission, it'd come back to us, and we would either accept or deny, or if they give us recommendations and stuff like that. But yeah, they're basically another set of eyes, like David said, to help them out, help guide them, I guess.
Yeah, there's been a few times where we've caught stuff and said, you know, this really doesn't sound right, or why are you doing it this way? Not to be mean or anything. And they thought about it and they've changed it, so like, I just believe it's another good set of eyes.
Yeah, it's, the another set of eyes looking at it and, from a different angle, and it's not a bad thing. So
All
I
right,
agree with Dave.
Commissioner Melvin.
Well, Jody, the county has a master plan, correct?
Yes, sir, we do.
And that has to be updated every 5 years? 10 years?
I look, is it 5 or 7 years?
7 years.
Okay, and this planning commission that you're the chairman of, David, you're the
Well, I'm not
entity
the chair of it. I'm just a member.
Okay, you're the member of it, and this is the committee that would be responsible for updating the master plan?
Correct.
Well, if we disbanded it right now, we'd have to reconstitute it to do a new master plan or to update our master plan anyway. So I don't see the problem with keeping it going, just 4 meetings a month.
Well,
A year.
you actually can answer that question. The economic development could probably take that over, but I'm not advocating that, okay? So, I mean, they got their hands full now. So,
Chairman, just to clarify, 2 points. The first one is we don't actually have to legally have a master plan since all of the townships have their own. But the most important point I want to bring is that the only reason this came to the agenda for both economic development and the planning commission is because in conversations at several of the last agenda meetings, we don't have anybody volunteering to fill these spots. And so that was the question. If we can find people that want to participate, should we continue to, because the planning commission has 1 or 2 spots and economic development has 3 spots, I believe. Clerk will know better, obviously, but.
right. Right, and and with typically with economic development, it's been a problem, but at the same time, the board rules also state that you're not specified to have 15, you can have up to 15. So in other words, that committee, if they've only got 7, they can function. If they only have 9, they can function. If I'm not mistaken, at this point, they've got 12, so, but I think we just need to get some enthusiasm towards economic development to help our businesses in this county. So if it's all right with the board, I mean, if you people don't want me to do any more research on economic development, I don't want to spend the time, but if with your blessing, I'd like to reach out and get some more information in regards to economic development. So then planning commission come up because I think there's one opening there. So that's why I come up. Anything else in regards to EDC and planning commission from any commissioner at this time? Okay, hearing none. I didn't cover this with Michelle beforehand, but Michelle and I did have some conversation at the agenda meeting in regards to these appointments. And Michelle, jump in here, but I think we kind of tentatively agreed that any of these people that are on these committees and the end of their term is coming up, the clerk's office is going to contact them with a form, whether they want to stay on or they want to get off. Am I correct, Michelle? Because you know what the dates are, right?
Well, I asked you how you wanted us to communicate. If you preferred that we reached out to the individuals, but then it was determined that maybe we need to reach out to the chairperson of that particular committee because some of these individuals may not be beneficial to the committee. They may not be attending the meetings regularly or something like that. So rather than asking them, I mean, yes, they need to be asked if they want to be reappointed, but we need to probably communicate that through the chairperson of that particular committee because they're at those committee meetings. They know what's going on rather than somebody saying, oh yeah, I want to be reappointed to that committee. So that out in the community, they can say I'm serving on such and such a committee, but they never actually come.
Right.
So that was my understanding, is that we would keep track of it and notify the chairperson of that committee, and then they need to communicate with those individuals if they want to be reappointed.
Right. So Michelle, can you and I work together on that to develop that so that and then we can present it to the board and everybody knows what the policy is?
Yes.
Okay, I'm good with that. Michelle and I will take care of that. Does any other commissioner have any input on that? Because it's been something, I think, over the years, a lot of times, some of these appointments a lot of times, they get missed for whatever the reason, not to blame anybody, but they get missed. The next thing you know, somebody's been functioning on that committee and they expired 2 years ago.
Well, we've done a pretty good job tracking it now. We have a spreadsheet over here for all of the committees and who's appointed, when they're appointed, when their term expires. So we're pretty good with that information and we know it, but that's what our question is who are we communicating with about these expirations? We're letting you know, but then what happens? I mean, who's pushing this? How, we want to know how far before the expiration are we sending a notice to the committee chairperson and what kind of a timeline? Because, we need to be able to allow you to present these people for reappointment or for consideration as an appointment at a work session to be voted on. And we want to try to keep them on schedule instead of getting 2 or 3 or 4 months or sometimes a year past the expiration date and trying to keep things on schedule.
Right. So if we can come up between you and I, Michelle, we can come up with whatever it is and we can document what it is and then each commissioner knows, because like Commissioner Muckenthaler is in charge of recycling committee. And earlier he talked about 2 reappointments there. So he needs to know what the policy is, and we'll push that information onto him, and then it's on him to take care of the appointments and get whether those people want to stay or not, or get new people. So,
Right.
Same.
But we
thing
do
with
have
that.
a form. We did create a form. You guys approved of.
Right. We got the form, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands what the policy is, okay?
Okay, very good.
You and I will work on that.
Okay.
Commissioner Melvin.
Yes, Michelle, I just wanted to run something by you here. At our most recent Veterans Affairs Committee meeting, we had 2 reappointments and their term had not expired before our last meeting, but they did expire, so the new reappointment will take effect for our next meeting. And I told those 2 gentlemen that they needed to be sworn in by the county clerk. Is that correct?
Yep, they've already been sworn in.
Very good. Now, is that a standing for all committee reappointments that when, before they can attend their next meeting and vote, they need to be sworn in, like for recycling or EDC?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the whole goal is to try to make sure that we have those appointments or reappointments in place and ready to go before that term expires. So you're not sitting there with vacancies and wondering, we don't want to leave any committee short of a quorum and unable to perform whatever tasks they're trying to do.
Right, or have votes taken that later are determined that they weren't legal because they weren't sworn in.
Well, and that's one of the challenges we have as well is that how many of our committees actually have some kind of bylaws that determine if an individual is appointed and no other appointment is signed and a reappointment hasn't been made. We don't have anything saying you continue in your position until an appointment has been made or anything like that. So that's been one of the frustrating things that I've had over the years is that most of our committees do not have some kind of bylaws indicating how these processes carry out. So it's very frustrating for us because we're trying to operate under how it should be so that there's a clear understanding. It's in writing. Everyone on the committee knows what's expected, how things are going to work. I know we've had a few committees where we get communication from the chairperson or whatever, where they've got individuals who regularly are not attending the meetings. Well, if there's nothing in writing saying, you need to be an active member of this committee if you're appointed to it, if you miss so many without being excused, then you're going to be replaced on the committee because that's just causing that committee to be ineffective and not able to accomplish what they need to do.
Right.
And not everybody's available to run around and have continuous special meetings because you don't have quorum. I don't have time for that. I imagine there's a lot of other people who don't either.
And one of the requirements will be in that policy that Michelle and I will come up with is that they do need to be sworn in, Ken. So, all right, Mr. Milburn, you got a question?
Yeah, just kind of, I liked what Michelle had to say and what the group has mentioned. You know, we're a unique county because the majority of the people that sit on these committees are retired. And often during the winter or summer, they don't attend because they're on vacation or they're out doing other things. And we've always been appreciative of their experience. I think now that we've got Zoom and we have phone calls, if in the future, when somebody, you know, takes off to Florida for 3 or 4 months, we have the capability now to bring them in using phone or Zoom. So I think our active participation should be even higher as we move forward, because Zoom and phone calls can be, you know, we didn't do that 5, 6 years ago, but obviously in the last few months we have. So I think as we move forward, we may have better communication with our retired people, because they'll be able to Zoom a meeting from Florida or Texas or from wherever they're at. Just a thought.
But again, that's something that needs to be established in that committee's rules or bylaws.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think we need to revisit almost all the bylaws to ensure that the new requirements are inserted into the bylaws. Thanks,
I'm
Michelle.
willing to bet most of your committees don't have bylaws. If they do, I don't have them.
You know, I look at this as we need to just establish a policy to go forward to clean this area up, because I think what's happened is 30 years ago, they appointed people to these committees, which was fine. I'm not opposed to that. But then some people started falling through the cracks, and the next thing you know, that person they're still functioning and they haven't been approved, or they're gone for the same reason. You have a problem person, they get on that board and they want to be on that board, and the next thing you know, they make a couple meetings and oh, that wasn't what I thought it was. So they just don't show up anymore. They don't notify anybody and they're just there. You know, they're still on the book. So I just think it's something that we're trying to clean up and get going in the right direction. So I think that's the biggest thing, is to come up with a policy. At least every commissioner knows, it's like Ken already knows that the Veterans Committee, he has to have those people approved. I don't know if it's every year or every 2 years, but whatever the time frame is. David knows the same with the Planning Commission. Tim knows the same thing with recycling, and I know it with EDC and brownfield redevelopment. Mr. Milburn's got the airport. So those are just some of the committees, and that's not all of them. So do we need any more discussion on that? We'll leave that to Michelle and I to work together on that. Okay, anything else by any commissioner at this time, please? All right, hearing nothing. Anything from anybody else out there, since we got a little time? Hearing nothing, we'll see everybody at 10 o'clock for a regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you.